Heyo, hello everybody, it's Omni Dog from Omni Dog's Vault. Hey out there, Omni Dogs and Omni Kittens. And it's time for me to do a long overdue root beer review of some comic books. Still on the sugar-free diet, so I'm drinking iced coffee from my dopey mug. And it started out as hot coffee, but now it's freezing cold. So it's iced coffee. Hey man, I'm hip, I can deal with it. So, what are we talking about today? We're talking about these books. Harley Quinn and the Gotham City Sirens, Omnibus. And Red Hood and the Outlaws, Volume 3, Rebirth. All New Wolverine, Volume 5. And Action Comics Deluxe Volume 2. And Action Comics 1000. So let's get going and talk about the first book, which is Harley Quinn and the Gotham City Sirens. This is, of course, a misnomer. It's just supposed to be the Gotham City Sirens. I bow to no man in my love for Harley Quinn, but there's not enough Harley Quinn in this to make it the Harley Quinn and the Gotham City Sirens. So, I mean, there's a good slug of her in this, but it's really about Catwoman, Poison Ivy, and Harley Quinn. And I would argue that it's even more of a Catwoman book than it is a Harley Quinn book. These events take place after Hush in continuity, which they will refer to. And the art is stellar throughout the book. It's very strong in the very beginning. Let me take the dust jacket off so we can see what's going on underneath. And this is what's going on underneath. Gotham City Sirens, which is what it should be called. So it takes place after Hush, so there are some appearances of Batman, some appearances of, quote, Bruce Wayne in it. So you do need to know a little bit of continuity as to the events in Hush. Otherwise, it can be enjoyed on its own. In this, the Riddler has actually gone straight. He is a private detective that helps the Sirens out. And the premise is that they find a building, they move in, and they're all roommates. So you can imagine the hijinks that ensue after that. Poison Ivy and Harley try to they try to worm out of Selina, Catwoman, the secret identity of Batman. And there is a great callback to the Joker's sidekick back in the 60s. And I forget his name now. It's right here. It's like McTag. What is it now? Whatever. It's not that important. But he appears and he tries to be the Joker. He's a little guy right there, you can see. And I remember I had a comic book that had him on the cover with Joker as the Joker's sort of sidekick. And it was great. It was a great callback to the 60s. And there's a lot of great stories in this. Paul Dini writes a big slug of them. Tony Bedard and... let's see who the other writer is, because Tony Bedard does some, and Peter Calloway, and the art is great with Guillaume March and Andre Winaldo. I give this book a solid B+. The first half is awesome, and the second half is only slightly less awesome. It does have an appearance by Zatanna and Talia al Ghul that is very fun because I love Zatanna. And so this has got, all the women are extremely strong female protagonists. It's even Harley, in her own way, is quite independent. Even though she has this weird fixation on Joker, she is behaving as strong as she can be. So I really enjoyed this book. Solid B plus. Well worth your if you're a fan of any of these characters, they're all featured nicely in this book. And I give it a solid B plus. As I said 55 times already. Sorry to keep repeating myself. But yeah, Gotham City Sirens, really good book. Then we have what some people are surprised is my favorite Rebirth title. I'm not saying it's the best. It's just my favorite. It's the one I look forward to the most. And that is Red Hood and the Outlaws. This is volume 3. You can see on the cover that Nightwing's in there. Artemis, the Amazon, and Bizarro are Red Hood's partners. They are the Outlaws. As Red Hood wages a high-tech battle against the criminal underworld. Only superheroes don't really know it. And they sometimes go after Jason Todd and his Outlaws. The art is very good throughout the book. Bizarro undergoes a major change in this book, which is a fun twist. I don't want to spoil it for you. You'll have to read it for yourself. But it is a very fun twist. It moves the story along nicely. And speaking of Harley Quinn, here's an appearance of Harley Quinn right here. This book, I just love Artemis and Bizarro as Outlaws. I don't know how Scott Lobdell changed from the New 52 Red Hood, which was not very good, to this Red Hood, which is amazingly fun. I really enjoy the heck out of this book. I get a huge kick out of it. I look forward to the trades every time they come out. I go to it right away to read. As soon as it comes in from in-stock trades, I open it up and read it immediately. I just love Red Hood and the Outlaws. This is a solid A-plus book for me. There's lots of twists and turns in it, lots of good character development. I never was the biggest Jason Todd fan, but in this book, I am a huge Jason Todd fan, and I highly, highly recommend this book. Red Hood and the Outlaws. Get volumes 1, 2, and 3. You should be very happy. If you're not, why don't you like fun? Speaking of fun, I love all new Wolverine. Laura is an excellent Wolverine. She is formerly known as X-23, and in this book, she has her brother, sort of Daken, Wolverine's son, appears, and they are battling the Orphans of X. All the X-creatures, all the people that have fallen at the hands of a Weapon X, have banded together to get their revenge. And the way they go about it is very unusual and interesting. And it has Gabby in it, who's a clone of X-23, and she has some of the best lines. She has the best lines in the book. Gabby is really well written. I think this is done by Tom Taylor. It is. It is just a really well written book. I love volumes 1 through 4. This is volume 5. I highly recommend this book. It's got great characters, great stories. As I said, I love Gabby. I even like Daken in this, which I usually don't. But as you can see, very nice color palette too. And they go to great lengths to try and defend themselves against the Orphans of X. And this book is genuinely... Actually, I don't want to show you that picture yet because that kind of wrecks it. This is a genuinely good read. I usually don't upgrade from trade paperbacks to oversized hardcovers, but if this comes out in OHC, I might upgrade. I like it that much. Now, you know me, you know I'm all about positivity. I want to showcase what's good in comic books because there's plenty of negativity on the internet. But every once in a while, OmniDog gets disappointed. And I'm mightily disappointed in a couple of books. I will tell you what they are. Surprisingly, Action Comics 1000, a landmark issue full of short stories about my favorite character, Superman. And I just did not think it was very good. I mean, there's great art throughout it because they got, it's Action Comics 1000. So they got great artists to write. They got great writers to write too, which is, really surprising. They got a lot of good writers and artists, but I've said before that I think it's hard to write short stories in comic books. It's especially hard to write short Superman stories, and this book proves it. I just don't think much of Action Comics 1000. I was really disappointed in it, and I can't recommend this book. I thought it was fun that they had all the various covers. This is the one I chose, all the cover variants. They tried to make it as fun as possible. It just didn't do it for me. I was really disappointed in Action Comics 1000. The stories just weren't developed enough to really kind of sink your teeth into. They were just a kind of meandering meh. I hate that word meh, but this was meh. This is the definition of meh. Not into it at all. The short stories just never grabbed me with anything interesting. Perhaps if they had been longer, they could have developed the storyline better and made something of it. But these are short stories that didn't grab this dog. So I'm sorry. Speaking of another disappointment, I know, I don't want to end on a disappointing note, but Action Comics Deluxe, I'm sorry. Superman is by far the better Superman book. Action Comics is just more of the same rehash of everything we've ever seen in a Superman comic. It does have the interesting Godslayer arc, where they are going at, where an alien called the Godslayer has a prediction from the future that Lex Luthor is going to become the next Darkseid, so they have come to assassinate Lex Luthor. Superman stands up for him, and heroics ensue. This was a pretty decent story. I will say that it was a decent story, but the rest of the book, this bit with the I don't want to spoil it if you don't know it. I don't want to spoil it if you haven't read it yet. Who the extra Clark? There's an extra Clark Kent in this galaxy who has the same DNA and memories as the real Clark Kent, but he's a duplicate Clark Kent. Who he is not a surprise, and it's just not a very good story. It's kind of lame, and I just didn't particularly care for it at all. It was pretty bland. And then we come to Superman Rehash, warmed over Rehash, where the writer brings in like all of these old nemesis of Superman from the past and has him do battle. And it's nothing new. It's a bunch of old villains reunited, and it's just a bunch of fights, and it's just it's boring. It is. I'm really sorry to say that this is boring. It features a bunch of old 90s villains, and it really did nothing for me, and I am going to stop getting Action Comics. This is my last deluxe until we get a new writer on it. I have nothing against the writer, Dan Jurgens. He wrote the fabulous Superman and Lois, or Lois and Superman, whatever it's called. Superman, Lois, and Clark. That was a great Rebirth book. Superman, Lois, and Clark. That was the best thing Dan Jurgens has ever written. But this is just a rehash of old stuff. Nothing new. I'm tired of superhero fights. Maybe it's because I've lived through so many. I'm jaded. Perhaps that happens. But that's it for me in Action Comics. But I did like Harley Quinn. I did like Red Hood and the Outlaws. And I did like All New Wolverine. So those are the books I recommend to you. And let me take a sip of cold coffee. So that is your root beer review for today. I hope it helped. I appreciate it. All you viewers out there, all you subscribers, please feel free to hit the like button, to the subscribe. I really appreciate it. You guys are great, and I always appreciate the nice comments I get. So take it with a grain of salt, but those are my opinions. So peace and love until next time.